Hey everybody, welcome to the Nerd Marketing Podcast. Today, Mike and I talk about Shoptalk in Vegas. We give you all our big learnings in case you didn't make it. And we talk about Pura Vida, the old jewelry brand. Vera Bradley just divested of it for the whopping sum of $1 million. So we dig into why that happened and some of what we see, having been on both sides of those kind of deals. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast.
Drew, if I'm a little raspy, it's because I'm finally starting to get my voice back after being in Vegas all week for Shoptalk.
Yesterday, you were awful, man. I've never seen this before. You were, you could barely speak. We had I don't know what we had, some meeting. Yep. You literally fell asleep on the meeting. I've never, like it was high school or something. You were like falling asleep and I'm pounding wake up. It's like
it was,
meeting.
Yeah. It was a rough morning. Not because I, was out partying too hard, but 3 days of nonstop morning till late night talking and with a bunch of folks in loud, crowded places. Took it. I'm old, man.
Yeah, it's a young person's game. I mean, the average age at our company is what, like 25 or something, like half my age. And D2C is young, skews young. It's every marketer out there, I feel like, is 30. And it all came to a head in Vegas at this party. And that's a big reason why I try to avoid these things. You went right in head first. You're not that much. You're essentially my age. I mean, a little bit younger. I was talking to my buddy Mike today, Geller, who was like, ran Newell Brands, ran global e-com at Pepsi, and kind of like an OG, who was in Vegas for Shoptalk. And I texted him and said, stop by our suite and say hi to my co-founder, Mike Epstein. And Geller said he was there for like 2 minutes. He's like, I was scared. I got in there and it was like, everybody's yelling, I don't know, stage diving's going on and we're like drinking and it's, 10 a.m. And I think he just got scared and he just took off. He couldn't.
It was not his scene for sure. We had that conversation. We tried to find a quiet area in the corner somewhere, out of the way. But it was definitely not his scene. But it was great to see him. I know the name from years and years. So great to see him. One other funny story from Shoptalk. I mean, we had an unbelievable event. Hundreds and hundreds of brands were there just hanging out, having like a really fun time, having like natural fun conversations and networking off the show floor where they tend to get attacked like piranhas attacking, prey. So it was a really great event. One story, I will keep the individual nameless, but I was meeting with a certain high profile individual, and probably billionaire. And we had a Mike Tyson impersonator there at the suite. And this was in the morning before everyone showed up. But Mike Tyson impersonator came to the room in the morning before everybody else shows up. And I'm just sitting having like a professional conversation with this individual, and in walks the dude with the face tattoo and the full-on Mike Tyson, voice and lisp and everything, and just wanders around the room as we're sitting there, and then starts grilling this individual on whether he's tried Denny's pancakes recently. And it was just a bit of a surreal moment until we were able to politely have Mr. Tyson find a different place to go.
Stood up and punched him in the face.
Right. That would not have ended well for me, I imagine.
Is it so for like private meetings like that? Are you just like, please come join me in the bedroom of the suite or something? And you go in.
We had a conference room actually in that suite, so there was a decent space to sit down, but that was not something I expected. But this person had a great sense of humor about it.
I remember doing that last year. It was like, hey, let's take this somewhere private, and you have your options are the bedroom or the bathroom of the suite to go into.
Yeah, exactly. Bedroom this year was filled with a bunch of masseuses, and so that was really fun. And yeah, great event. Had a few takeaways from Shoptalk. I think there were.
What do you got?
I did walk the floor. I think there were a handful of themes, and took a couple notes on what I think some of those themes were. One, as comes as probably no surprise to anyone, is like AI. So invading everything from inventory management, so demand planning, forecasting, ensuring that you have the right amount of inventory, you're not having to liquidate at markdowns, things like that. Dynamic pricing optimization, so hearing more and more about real-time pricing based on what competitors might be doing, inventory level, customer behavior, unique customers, things like that. Search and visual search, so find products by what they look like, and then hyper personalization, of course. So how do you create more and more individually personalized experiences at scale by implementing AI through your site? There was certainly a lot of omni-channel. So we've seen this, Drew, among tons of the brands that we work with who started out as purely digital native, and they've expanded both into third-party retail, so the Targets, the Walmarts, the Whole Foods, and other places, as well as their own retail. So whether it's Jones Road opening up a number of stores, Portland Leather Goods has a number of stores and more on the way. Cozy Earth has a number of stores, more on the way. That is becoming a bigger and bigger trend. You and I have talked about this on the podcast a bunch. And so how do you build data platforms that help you leverage your first party data to drive and activate customers across multiple channels, tapping into these retail media networks, so new ad platforms that are being stood up by grocery chains and Walmarts and Amazons to allow brands to reach customers at the point of distribution through these third-party distribution. There's last mile innovation, so fulfillment options. How do you different services that can provide from buy online, pick up in store, to in-store returns, things like that, connected experiences, tracking and attribution across retail, getting more visibility, because of course, especially if you're sold in third-party retail, you're not getting that customer data back. So different technologies that can try and give you more visibility into what activities you're doing that are driving increased velocity. We talked about case study recently where we drove folks in store based on geo-targeting lookalike audiences around specific Whole Foods locations. That would be an example there. I think those were a couple of the key themes. And then in the suite, sort of talking to our brands, some of the key themes we were hearing is too many one-time customers. So how do we increase the number of repeat customers? Because we're just seeing too many one and dones, and that's really screwing up our profitability, because obviously cost of acquisition is continuing to go up, and if you don't have high LTVs, the math starts to look worse and worse, because
That's what we've been beating that drum for years, Mike. That's always been a problem.
Totally, but I think you're exactly right. I think it's becoming more and more acute now as customer acquisition costs continue to rise. We're hearing
like Casper put that problem on the map.
Totally. The graphic, the one I'm talking about, Drew?
Yeah, the Galloway graphic.
Yep. It'd be better to stuff your mattress with $300 and send it to you for free than and light it on fire.
These are early days of Casper.
Yeah, exactly. And meta volatility has been more and more painful recently. So yeah, I think, always some challenges, but a couple of things that we were talking about with some brands, they were asking, how do you create really memorable touch points with our best customers? Because they're trying to find ways to really just brand marketing in the sense that making your brand, creating an emotional connection with customers, making your brand unforgettable. And one of the ways that they've loved, I think that, you know, a lot of folks didn't know that we did at the suite, was the handwritten cards, where we take pen to paper and write with all the nuance of a human hand and send it in a handwritten envelope with a stamp. And you can do that for loyalty programs. So as soon as someone reaches your top loyalty tier, trigger a card to go out and welcome them to the tier. Birthday cards. We actually know the birthday of like 90% of your customers. So we can trigger a card to go out in advance of their birthday. How many handwritten birthday cards do people get anymore? They're going to remember you forever when you do that. Or VIP. So as soon as someone makes their 5th purchase, for example, trigger a card to go out to them, acknowledging that. I mean, how else are you going to create that memorable of a touch point with your best customers for under $2? It's just a very scalable, practical way to do that.
There's data that a couple studies we love citing that we didn't do, but we could link them in the show notes. One of them was really interesting. They had a retailer had a test group and a control group. The test group got a handwritten thank you note after ordering. The control group did not. And the test group went on to have 2 times the customer lifetime value of the control group. In other words, like getting that physical, tangible human touch increased the propensity for that customer group to come back and buy again and to buy more. So it's always a good idea. I think, like, whether you send that handwritten thank you note to everybody, which you could, or have some kind of threshold or filter in there where it's only people who spend a certain amount or a certain number of times, like, it's a great move. I mean, doesn't cost a whole lot to send one of those out. And if you're setting your threshold at somebody who spends, $500, $1,000 with you, it's really worth, like, I don't know that you can get much better in terms of a retention program than sending out a handwritten thank you note.
Agreed. So recapping, AI that's starting to go beyond hype into much more and more practical use cases, from customer success to inventory, financials, everything. Unified retail experiences. I think that's the new buzzword that's replacing omni-channel.
Unified.
Yeah.
I like it. And Shopify just acquired an AI search tool, like literally last week, Vantage Discovery, that was built by 2 Pinterest engineers. And it looks like it's AI meets search, more intelligent search, product recommendations. So very curious what Shopify does with this. Are they going to build it into their default offering or not?
Yep. I like it. Those were my takeaways.
Awesome. Big M&A news this week that we can
massive M&A of $1 million.
Yeah. So what we're talking about now is Pura Vida. So a jewelry company that was acquired by Vera Bradley in when were they acquired, Mike? 2019 for what, 85 million? Was a big deal when they got acquired, right? Like, Pura Vida guys certainly made out. And this was a bigger sort of fashion and jewelry company acquiring the D2C upstart. And then just last week, Vera Bradley unloaded Pura Vida for the whopping sum of $1 million to a private equity group that looks like it was just stood up to acquire this. I found nothing about them online. Kind of curious if this is like the original founders buying it back, for $1 million. And obviously, usually that's something that the big company, the acquiring company, the original acquirer doesn't want to admit they sold it back for $1 million. So it's not public who Project Aster acquisition is. But yeah, Pura Vida sort of goes full circle here. It's a bit of a case study on how to destroy a brand, right? Or how to run it into the ground. I mean, look. So Pura Vida, I've got some deal information here. Pura Vida's 2024 revenue was $53 million, which was down about 47% from the year prior. And they were unprofitable. Like, they were profitable when they were acquired, but their operating loss went to $11 million from $7 million in Q4 of the previous year. Growth rates fell 50%. And yeah, so that's sort of the story. So Pura Vida, if you remember, Mike, was started by Griffin Thal and Paul Goodman, both in San Diego. Griffin was on our podcast. And if you look through the archives, you'll find our interview with him about sort of life after Pura Vida and how they grew. And so I guess the question is, like, we've seen this a number of times. I mean, this is like our wheelhouse, right? Is buying a sort of a big busted brand out of an even bigger company. We did it with Auto Anything, buying it out of AutoZone. You know, these things sort of, you underestimate like the magic that a founder has at a brand and the culture they create. And the big brand or the big acquirer will pull it in and often kill that culture, whether it's intentional or not. You know, and it happened at Auto Anything, where I remember our first day of work, we went into this e-commerce startup. You know, it was a startup when it was acquired by AutoZone. Everybody there is essentially working 9 to 5, and they're wearing the AutoZone uniforms that you'd wear in a store. And so it was clear to us, like, AutoZone corporate thought of this as like another store. Like, we're just going to apply the same rules to this e-commerce business. We're going to make them wear what the store people wear, and they're going to show up when the store people show up, and they're going to take the AutoZone pledge every morning. And it was just like, well, you can do that, but you're going to often drive a lot of the people who made that business a special e-commerce business or startup. Like, they're not going to stick around, so they're out. And you're left with people who sort of like didn't have that original magic, or like the original founders aren't there. So I think a lot of that probably went on at Pura Vida.
I think you're right. And for the listeners, you were not joking about the AutoZone pledge. There was a cheer that they had to do at the beginning of the day and before meetings. But I think you're exactly right. And from what I've heard from folks who stayed on at Pura Vida after the acquisition, they described it almost exactly the way you did, which was like the magic was gone. The founders left. I mean, it was sold on an upswing, right? Like, they were still growing rapidly. They got to over 100 million in revenue. I mean, my kids have tons of bracelets from Pura Vida, but then you saw what happened once it sort of became ingrained in this corporate culture. And while, again, you or I don't have detailed insights into exactly the workings of what was going on there, I think we have a pretty good idea of what probably happened, as you said. And again, from what we've heard from some folks in there, it became a very corporate culture. Vera Bradley's a publicly traded company. It can become very difficult to continue executing the way you had been that got you the growth in the first place. And maybe there might have been other tailwinds or other macro factors that ultimately would have, inhibited the continued growth of the brand, but certainly the acquisition and what we heard from folks about how the culture changed there would not have been helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we knew, like, Griffin hacked Instagram in the early days. There were, he was early on influencer, and there were people who were showing their bracelets all over the Instagram channel. I mean, I'm sure he would have been able to figure out TikTok and do the same thing. But from what I've read, the acquiring company, Vera Bradley, like in an effort to cut some costs, took away a lot of that magic, got rid of some of the early employees who were driving a lot of that engagement, and wanted just the jewelry to kind of stand on its own two legs in the stores, right, without the sort of social media experience behind it, and led to declining performance. So I think they could probably reboot it. Influencers hard, but today there's TikTok, so there may be another play there. I think you'd have to be careful that it is, it's a trendy category, right? Like you said, your girls are into it, or were into it. Like, are they still going to be into it today?
Right.
That's
so
tough,
much.
right? It's tough keeping like something like this relevant.
Exactly. Now it's like Goriana and the other trendy brands. But Drew, if you're acquiring a company, how do you make sure that you don't suck the magic out of it, especially if the founder ends up not staying on for an extended period of time?
It's tough, man. I mean, you took away the first thing I was going to say. Is like you leave the founder there, and you leave a giant slug of equity in an earnout where the founder has to stick around. But if you take the founder out, then it's tough. I mean, I'm trying to think through acquisitions where it might have worked. But we're talking about like founder. I guess the first step is you got to realize, is this a founder driven organization? It's something like Pura Vida. Those two founders were so critical to the growth of this business. Whereas, I don't know, some cardboard box business that's grown probably doesn't need the founder's not as critical. But certainly in their case, it was. I'm thinking about other ones like, when Walmart bought Bonobos, or, was the founder that important there? I think at that point, Andy Dunn had probably wasn't, right? Like, to the growth of the company. But I think the first thing is realizing what you've got. If it's a founder-driven brand, can you incentivize the founder to stick around and to contribute to the, continue that growth engine that they've unlocked? How about you?
Yeah, I think that's right. We hear a lot of stories about founder-led companies, and to your point, it doesn't necessarily mean that the founder is always even the face of the brand. It's more that the founder is the heart of the brand, the soul
Mm-hmm.
of the soul of like the culture there. They don't have to be this, the person that's on social media all the time representing the brand, but it's what sets the tone of that company. And yeah, it gets hard when you remove that.
I'm thinking Karmaloop had a strong founder. Overtone had two strong founders that are no longer with the brand. Even Boom with Ezra and Cindy Joseph, two strong founders. And in each case, when you remove the founder, like, you've lost something. So like, what do you replace it with? And a lot of these brands just fail because you're unable to do that. So it's something to watch for.
Agreed. Well, $1 million in, there's not a ton of downside left. Although
no.
I think my hunch would be, I guess you just got to get this thing to cash flowing again. And I would imagine that there's going to be some major cuts there, because the worst thing is you buy it for $1 million, but you're bleeding $1 million a month in cash flow. Like, nobody wants that. So I imagine they're going to try and get it to cash flow, break even, or positive as quickly as possible, and then see if they can really scale this thing way back and rebuild from the ground up. But that's my guess.
I gotta think they sold back to the founders, because I would have paid $1 million. So many people would have paid $1 million for this company.
It's still a good brand.
Yeah.
So we'll revisit.